Okay, sure.
Yes. Good afternoon, participants. Today, for this afternoon session, we have Dr. Pramod Watekar, sir, from Sterlite Optical Technologies Limited, Aurangabad. Yesterday, also, we have a wonderful session on manufacture of optical fibers in the industry. For today's session, Dr. Pramod, sir, is going to discuss about the advancements in the optical fiber sensors for various applications. Now, without wasting time, I request Dr. Pramod sir to proceed with his today's talk. Dr. Pramod sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Yadav.
Yes, sir.
I'm just sharing my.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please. I will unshare first. Then you share. Yes, sir. Please share, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is visible, sir.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your session.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
I hope I should also really attend this seminar. There are very good topics. I saw the timetable and everything.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so today we are going to start with another session on my side on optical fiber sensors. Yeah. So I'm keeping this talk as beginner's talk. I'm not going directly jumping into details of all sensors, how to make all things. I organize talk like this. Initially, I will cover the properties that we need for sensing. Not cover everything. Whatever needed for sensing that we cover, and then we'll take sensors, and finally I will show some use cases. Use cases in the sense the fiber that are actually manufactured where I was involved. So I will share my experience here. Here we go. Okay. So I explained. So when we say optical fiber sensors, there are various types of sensors, but generally we have to remember that broadly, not always, but broadly, what is bad for communication is good for sensing. That is what we say. Make it bad, make it worse, make the fiber very worst, very good for sensing. So that type of things are there. Okay, I'll start here. I will quickly take through the basics of fibers or which we need for sensing application. We'll start with glass. Everybody has seen glasses, right? We have window glasses. Those are soda lime glasses. Na2O, CaO, SiO2. They are the very, very common glasses are there. As we know, it is a brittle things, and it is glasses are always amorphous. And I will just keep here. We have glasses generally made up of SiO2, right? Silica. We always say silica, but it is not necessary to have silica glass. We can have boron glasses. We can have phosphorus glasses. We can have germanium glasses. So boron, phosphorus, and germanium oxides of these they can make the glass independent of each other. We can have just boron, it will form the glass. So all these SiO2, B2O3, P2O5 or germanium oxides, these are called as network formers, means they form the glasses. So they are the network formers. And there are some network modifiers. I mean, you can add this, for example, sodium, potassium, titanium, Zn, Pb, Al2O3. All these oxides we can add there, and we can alter the properties of glass. So they are called as network modifiers. They modify the network. For example, why you add network modifiers? For example, if you take SiO2, silicon dioxide glass, we need huge temperature to melt it, right? Nearly 1700 degrees Celsius, very high. You add few percent of sodium there, sodium oxide. When I'm saying sodium, it is all oxides. Then you add Na2O there, and you can bring that 1700 degrees Celsius melting temperature down to 800. So likewise, we can alter the properties of glasses. So they are called as network modifiers. Okay, so we have network formers and network modifiers. Quickly coming to glass structure study, we saw that thing. Amorphous means there is no, there is no order structure. It is disorder structure. Crystalline means beautiful order. Can we make? We can ask one question. Can we make crystalline glass? Why not? Okay, we can make crystalline glass. Only thing is that we have to cool it to 1,000 years. We have to let it cool down and we give the atoms to arrange themselves. So naturally, we can get the crystalline glass. It is huge time is needed, around 1,000 years are needed there. So we generally find crystalline glasses in in our under the earth's crust. But if you want to make glasses, we generally don't allow it to cool that way. So we don't allow the atoms or molecules to rearrange themselves. So we get the disorder structure we call as the amorphous glass. Okay, so we have seen we have glass, formers, Si, Ge, then phosphorus. They're all aluminum, phosphorus. These are all what you call as glass formers. They form the glass, and there are modifiers. Others are modifiers. So alkali, all these guys, sodium, these oxides, they are modifiers that you can change the properties of glass. Okay. And as shown here in this picture, we have Si is there. It has 4 bonds, and SiO(Si). I'll point it here. Here we have SiO(Si) bond, right? And this is the bond here, SiO(Si). So this SiO, then another is one SiO(Si). So this is oxygen is bridge between this Si, two Si atoms. So this is called as bridging oxygen. Oxygen that is between two Si atoms, it is bridging oxygen. And we can replace it with germanium. Okay? As shown here, we have Si, we can replace it with germanium, and still it is a glass. So that is the beauty of glass formers. So now refractive index is increased if you add germanium there. And coming quickly to concept of refractive index, we know that we have a red colored glass, or red color. We have blue color, which is more energetic. As you know, wavelength of red light is 650 nanometer, and if you take blue light, it is 450 or 460, something around that thing, 454. So energies, blue light has more energy. Lower the wavelength, higher the energy. So blue light has the more energy, we say. Similarly, if you take this case here, this high frequency here, and it's lower frequency. High frequency is the case of high energy, right? So when we take high frequency, it is high energy. We have and lower the wavelength, we have more energy. That's what we say. That's a refractive. And then question comes, why there is a why we have refractive index? The basic reason, as per electromagnetic, there is the existence of dipole. Okay. And we know that from Planck's theory that energy contains the packets that we call it as a photon. Okay. So tiny packet energy, it's a photon. Now, just general question here. If we say, okay, there is a photon, which is energy, which is light, then what is its mass? What is the mass of photon? Because we have famous equation, right? Einstein equation, E is equal to mc square. So photon is the energy. Okay, E is there. We know this C, then we should get mass, right? So what is the mass of photon? That is the very basic question we ask. And interesting answer is that it has no mass. How is possible? Because this mass that we're talking about is the mass at rest. Okay, and your photon packet is always moving. That is what the consideration is. So photon has no mass. Okay. Now, when you go for glasses, it's full of molecules and atoms, and we have dipoles there, right? I think everybody is well aware with dipoles. We have nucleus, positive nucleus. There are electrons, so there is dipole formation. Once there are dipoles, the photons are passing through it. Okay. Now, I'm just mixing. If you can note, I'm mixing the electromagnetic theory with quantum mechanics. Both are very different, right? But there is some group of some generation of scientists which believe, why not? Why not we mix both the knowledges? If it makes our things very simple to understand, because after at the end we are going to use the quantum mechanical equations or electromagnetic equations. That is what we are going to solve the problem. But to understand the facts, to make our brain accept the fact, we generally mix these things together, two theories together. So it's an interesting thing here. Okay, so dipole is electromagnetic, and photon is your quantum mechanical thing. But if you imagine, it's very easy for the brain. We have dipoles there and your photon going through it, and naturally there is absorption of the photon. You are going to reduce the speed of photon, right? What is coming out, emerging out. So when, by any way, if the speed of the photon is reduced, so by what amount? That is nothing but your refractive index, and that is the reason for having refractive index. The dipole, the existence of dipoles in glasses is the reason for refractive index. That's how we explain ourselves, so that we accept. So refractive index is nothing but resistance to light speed. Light speed is reduced by proportional to refractive index value. So that's what we call refractive index, and how refractive index appears there. Why we are learning this refractive index? Because we're going to use this technique for glasses, sensors. Just one example, light is passing through here. Let's go for this way. And what is the speed? We know everybody, right? We know refractiveness air is 1. So speed of light is known to us, 3 × 10⁸ meter per second. And so when the photon is passing, light is passing through air or vacuum, we take it the highest speed, right? 3 × 10⁸ meter per second. Now light is passing through glass of refractive index 1.5. Okay. So what is the speed? Naturally, the speed should reduce, and it should reduce by the amount, right? So refractive index is 1.5. Speed is known to us, and then new speed is reduced one now. Earlier it was 3, now it is 2. Okay. So refractive index actually reduces the speed of light. So that's what explained by this example. I think everybody knows it. Just for sake of continuity, I'm explaining these things. Then we have refractive index change, how it behaves with wavelength. As wavelength, I have plotted one graph here. Okay, there is very well-known Thelmayer equations. The refractive index actually reduces with wavelength. Increase the wavelength, refractive index reduces. Okay, that is the property there. And if refractive index is reducing, it is giving very interesting phenomena in optical fibers that is called as dispersion. Okay. But we'll not discuss dispersion here. We are not going to use dispersion for sensing, so it's immaterial for us for today's talk. But you should remember that refractive index changes with wavelength, and it decreases if wavelength increases. And we have optical fiber RI sensor. So why we are explaining this thing? Because we can use this phenomena to use optical fiber to sense the refractive index. So we call it as a RI sensor. Okay, coming to optical fiber now. This is the typical profile of optical fiber profile made in Sterlite. You can see the central part is this is a core surrounded by cladding. Okay, we call this the buffer cladding. Okay. We have core, we make buffer clad, and then there is another cladding layer which is shown here. This is the remaining part up to 62.5. So core, buffer clad, and cladding. Why buffer clad? Because we are using very pure material for core. Similarly, we use very pure material for buffer cladding, and then locally made what we made SiCl4. SiCl4 is used for the other part. These impurities should not affect purity and attenuation in the optical fiber. We always give very pure buffer layer of cladding. So that's why there. So this is a typical profile of optical fiber, and 80% of power is confined in the core. This region has 80% of power, and remaining 20% goes into the cladding. By this region is 20%. So 80% in cladding, 20% in 80% in core and 20% in cladding, this outer part. This 20%, which is outer side, we call it as evanescent field, and this gives us to evanescent field sensor. So evanescent field sensors can be made by using this phenomenon. Okay. Power is in core and small power is in cladding. We can use that power to sense any property. Evanescent field sensor. We'll see what are these applications of this type of sensors. Then coming to propagation of light in the fiber, as you know already, there is if you take array phenomena, array optics, there is a ray of optic fiber, ray of the light going through the optical fiber core, and it propagates inside the optical fiber by means of total internal reflection. If we if that total internal reflection phenomena is not followed, then that light can come out like that way. Okay, so we have to always follow that total internal reflection. So the refractive indexes are chosen such that this total internal reflection phenomenon is always followed. Okay, so generally cladding, I'm giving typical figures here. In starlight fiber, we have cladding refractive index of 1.444 at 1550 nanometer. This is the refractive index of cladding. We have core nearly about 1.45. It varies around that. And we have cladding at 1 point, again, another example. Cladding is 1.444, core is 1.45. And we should always mention wavelength when we are talking about refractive index, because we have seen that refractive index changes with wavelength. So when I say 1.45, it is at 1550 nanometer. So this is typical fiber structure, core surrounded by cladding and surrounded by coating. Okay. So these are coatings here. Coating refractive index is made higher than cladding, okay, so that the whatever power is there, it should go out. The coating Ri is always higher than even core and cladding. So that's the stray power, whatever in the cladding, it goes out. Okay, so this is our core surrounded by cladding and surrounded by coating. And now this is how light goes through it. Right? If there is total internal reflection, it comes out. If there is spoiled, then it goes to the cladding. From cladding, the light can go out to the coating. So if we change the coating, change it something, do something there, whatever maybe you are doing. If you change this coating, or you change the cladding, okay, do some change the cladding property, cladding material, or whatever member. So if you change coating, you change cladding, then you get a sensor. That's the evanescent sensor. So you change something with cladding, we change something in coating, you can get a sensor. That is the evanescent sensor. Coming to next part of introduction to optical fiber, we have modes in optical fiber. We always use ray optics. There is a total internal reflection, and then ray passes through the optical fiber core. This is for our understanding, right? But in actual sense, the ray optics fell if we go to the single mode dimensions, where optical core is of 9 micrometer dimension, 9 to 10 micron. So if you go for such a smaller diameter, ray optics fell there. Still we use it just for understanding, but ray optics fell. So we have to go to electromagnetic theory, Maxwell's theorem. Sorry. So we have light. We always assume it as it is made of electric and magnetic. We call it electromagnetic. But generally, whenever we say talking about light, we always say electric field. It does not mean it's only electric. The magnetic field also there, but it's very easy to do experiments and measure the various properties using electric fields. So we always say electric field. It is actually electromagnetic field. We have electric field perpendicular. There we have magnetic field. And now when light is passing through the optical fiber core, and we say generate array, right? But if you see, it can take many shapes. Interestingly, it can take many shapes, depends on refractive index and core diameter. Like you change the dimensions, you change the refractive index, you can get different shapes. For example, you can get shape like this. This is for single mode fiber, right? You can get shape like this. Or you start to get multi-mode fiber here. You can get different shapes. So depending upon refractive index and core, we get different shapes. We call it as modes. We call it each shape represent the mode. This is one mode, this is mode, right? So, and how there is typical representation of modes. We'll not take that thing. That is out of our context for today's talk. So, whenever light is flowing through the optical fiber, it takes various shapes, and then we get what we call as mode. And why we are studying this? Because when we have the modes, there are mode-based senses. Okay? So we need to know these things. Mode is nothing but shape of your light or magnetic field which is passing through the optical fiber. If you see from the other end, you can observe those modes. It's not just ray. There are different shapes. The electromagnetic modes are there. Now, if you come to the optical fibers, we have single mode and we have multi-mode fibers. Single fiber means it has only one mode. We call it, if you take linearly polarized mode, LP01 mode. If you go for multi-mode fibers, we have too many shapes contained there, thousands of modes, very complicated shapes, and that gives us multi-mode fibers. Multi-mode, many modes. Single mode, only one mode. Generally, when we say one mode, basically we say one mode, but there are always two mode, right? Two orthogonal modes, one mode and then another perpendicular to it. So two modes are there, but we say one mode because it makes our calculation very easier. So single mode means one mode, multi-mode means many modes. That is the basic thing here. And if you go for single mode fibers, core radius is very small. It is 8 to 10 micron. This is very small one here. If you go for multi-mode fibers, then we have huge core. This is the core here, very big core of 50 micron to 60 micron. So two standards are there: 50 micron core or 60 micron core. Depends on application. Customer asks for those values, but we can make different core sizes as per requirement. So multi-mode fibers means a very huge core size, 50 micron, 60 micron, and single mode means very small core, it's 10 micron. And that's why in single mode we say only one mode, and multi-mode can accommodate thousands of modes, and 1000 mode. Now coming to next property of optical fiber, we have macro bending loss. Means you take the fiber, you bend it, and if you bend it, the light, we may spoil the total internal reflection condition, and light can come out of the core, and we lost that power, and we output power is reduced. So that gives the loss, which is called as macro bending loss. Okay. So generally, if you go for 5 mm radius or that type of sharp bends, less than that, you get huge losses. Single mode fiber can give loss in more than 50 decibel per turn. Only one turn can give that much loss if you take 5 mm bending radius. Huge losses in single mode fibers, and that's why we have bend insensitive fibers to take care of those losses. Okay, just for sake of continue to explain that thing. So we have macro bending losses, because when we bend the fiber, we spoil the total internal reflection condition, and we lost that power in the cladding, and then cladding to the coating and then environment. So this is the macro bending loss. Another reason for macro bending loss is that if there is a light, right, going smooth, power is going through this way, it has to cross lower distance, while the power in that area has to cross more distance, right? So it will suppose that the speed of light here is 3 into 10 to the power 8. Now we know that these should be always same. It should arrive at the same time. So the power at the end, it has to travel faster, catch up this one, this earlier one, right? This lower than to catch up the speed of this part. This part will have to travel faster. Now, if you say 3 into 10 to the power 8 is the speed of this lower part, then this has to cross the limit of 3, which is impossible. So where this impossibility, that converts into loss. That is the another theory of losses. But we can understand that very simply. Simple thing is that when you bend the fiber, we spoil the some total internal reflection condition, and we get the losses. That's the bend loss, and this is very bad for communication. We should not have macro bending loss. Bad for communication because we are losing power. So that's why we are using bend insensitive fibers. But now if we have this is bad for communication. as we are told, it's good for our sensing. So macro bending loss, okay, we have losses, then yeah, let's use it for sensing purpose. Macro bending loss, higher loss, good, give us. For example, we have dispersion shifted fiber, huge losses. Okay, but this is very good to sense pressure in steel structures. So we use this macro bending loss property for pressure and civil structure fault sensing. There's a lot of uses there. It is bad for communication, good for sensing. Another is phenomena is micro bending. We have seen macro. Now this is micro bending. When typically when your bend radius goes below 1 mm, we give a very sharp bend. Generally, we do it in macro bending tests. Which is called as a high power damage test. We use this such a small dia. We see when it burns out. Actually, fiber burns out if you give very high power up 2 watts and make it very sharp bend of 1 mm radius. It burns. Coating burns out because of that. So that's called as high power damage test. So okay, anyway, so we have micro bending loss. Why? Because there is this is core and there is cladding. So core cladding, there is the interface. You can have a problem there. We have core cladding to coating. There can be irregularities. We always say it's very good glass, it's very good, but it's not. Practically, this happens. We cannot get such a smooth surface. So roughness is always there at the interfaces. So we have to take care of those losses. We have to account those losses into our calculations, power calculations. So these bends are always there, very small bends. Okay. So they generally gives losses which called as micro bending losses. Okay. You bend it, or even though you keep it straight, because of the surface irregularities, core to clad, that interface, clad to coating interface. Those, if there are irregularities, we can lose some power, as shown in this picture. Right, this light is going here and it's coming out because of this light is coming out. So loss that we get because of this irregularities in the interface, those are called as micro bending loss. Okay, so the micro bending losses are very bad for cabling because we have to protect our fiber from damage in the environment. When you bury the fiber, we cannot bury directly. We have to use jacket, right? So that is called as cable. So if you are using cabling of optical fiber, and then that can exert some pressure on these micro bends, and there is a huge loss. Okay, there are a lot of complaints come. Your fiber has a lot of losses if there are irregularities there. So this is not good for communication because it is going to eat our power budget. So micro bending loss are not good for communication, so they are good for our sensing. That's what we are saying. We can use this for pressure sensing. Micro bending losses. Use it for pressure sensing. Use it for cable testing, whether cable is good or not, whether it is exerting stresses on the fiber. So that type of pressure sensing can be carried out by using the micro bending loss phenomena of the optical fiber. So this is very good for us. Next property that is useful for us for sensing is polarization. Polarization. Polarization, nothing but the orientation of our electric field, electromagnetic field. Okay, so why this appearing is that the reason is that we always say our fiber, perfect core, right? Perfect cylindrical. It's perfect. That core is perfect circular. If you take the cross section, core is perfect. It's not. Never. We don't get actually perfectly circular core. We always measure it. If it is beyond some tolerance, we reject that fiber. So we have to test the core for this ellipticity. We always do that. For example, we can get ellipticity, or even we can build up stresses in the fiber itself. Okay. So for example, panda fiber. So there are inbuilt stresses. If your fiber that has inbuilt stresses, huge stresses, that can actually change the polarization. Second thing is we can have external stresses. We can take the fiber and press it. You are applying that stress. You can observe actually you will lose a lot of power. So fiber, there are irregularities. These things are there. Bends are there. There are twists. There are stresses. There is core asymmetry. So because of that, what happens? we always say that if you are passing, light through the optical fiber, suppose this is the orientation, right? This is what orientation is there, but you may not get that orientation at the output. It may change. So that change is now very random. Why this happens? The reason is that, for example, because of these, irregularities, core asymmetry, stresses, twist, fiber gets tested, right? When you are cabling it placed, it gets bended. When we are using in the, suppose fiber is used in your home, fiber to the home, right? So if fiber coming to your home computer, it has to pass, come through the walls and then to your computer or your system. In that case, what happens is that it has to, there are a lot of bends are there. So that bends and then twist and all things then give rise to the what is called as polarization effect. Polarization change. What happens is that along the x-axis and y-axis, well, let's say, right, there is effect index. So effect index along x-axis, along y-axis, there is small variation, but that small variation is enough to change the polarization, orientation of your field. So this is what you get. You may get this at the output. This polarization can change. Okay, this is polarization. How is orientation of electric field is polarization. Along the fiber now, because of these things, along the length we get a lot of polarization change. It's very difficult to maintain polarization. So that's why there are polarization maintaining fibers are made. So polarization can cause a catastrophic effect in optical fiber communication. Why it happens? It's shown here. If you send this pulse here, okay, simple pulse. Now we have, as we saw the single mode fiber, we have always seen that single mode fiber has single mode, but we also have discussed that there are single mode is not actually single mode. It has two modes, two orthogonal modes. Okay, one mode here, one is perpendicular. So this is one mode is there. This is the orthogonal mode. Okay, this is perpendicular. This the lower one is perpendicular one. This is going this way. Top one is like this way. We have this way. And if because of change in refractive index, what will happen that this top port pulse, this field may lag, and this another field, they may have different speed of propagation, different velocity of propagation. So now there is the elongation, right? This top field is suppose expressing high refractive index, it will travel slowly because refractive index slows down the speed of light. So top field is now slowed down while the perpendicular field, it is moving fast because it is experiencing low index, suppose, right? This is the top one is experiencing high index, this is experiencing low index, so naturally the speed is different, and you can get speed of this field there, they are not now aligned, and it results into what is called as this type of pulse spreading. So initial pulse was like this way, beautiful pulse. Now it is now spreaded pulse. It is called a phenomena which is this because of these two polarization modes traveling with different velocities, it gives rise to the pulse spreading, right? And this is very bad for communication. It's called as polarization mode dispersion, because now it limits the number of channels, number of wavelengths we can transmit is limited because of this phenomena. It's called as PMD, pulse mode dispersion. So polarization mode dispersion. This is very bad for it says very low value, but if you go for thousands of kilometers from India to America, that type of line, then this is very significant. So it is bad for this polarization is bad for your communication. So it is good for us now as sensors, as sensor engineers. So it's good for us. This polarization change of electric polarization change can be used to sense the electric current. Very nice. Okay, so we'll see how I'm going to show you how we use this phenomena to make magnetic sensor in the use cases. So this polarization mode, it was not good for communication. Now it is good for us. Okay. So what is bad for communication is turning out to be very good for us. We can use this phenomena, this property for sensing purpose. Okay, coming finally to one more. There are a lot of properties, right? We are discussing properties which are useful for us as sensing, not all. The non-linearity in optical fibers. What is non-linearity is that we send one color in optical fiber, you are getting different color at the output. If I am sending red color, I'm expecting red color to come out. but instead of red, I am getting maybe broad light. Maybe I am getting different light. So color of input light is changed as the output. That happens because of non-linearity. Okay, how it happens? This is n is refractive index. If you say we have total refractive index, we have discussed refractive index. It changes its wavelength. So that's linear refractive index. Then there is a intensity dependent parameter. Okay, so this n2 into I0. I is intensity. If your power of your light input power is very high, then this n2, which is called as non-linear index, is always there in optical fiber, but its value is very low. It is in the terms of 10 to the minus 20. So very meter square per watt, very small value. So we never bother actually. But if we are now using very high power lasers, for example, in WDM, wavelength division multiplexing, we are using many wavelengths. Okay. So if you add up all powers, total intensity can be very high. So power can be very high. Okay. If you are passing hundreds and thousands of channels, total intensity can be very high. It can easily go beyond 2 watts. That's why we always measure in our company. There is one test which is called as high power damage test. We pass 2 watts of power and see whether it is damaging or not. The fiber should not get damaged easily. That is the test there. So if the power, input power is very high, this N2 becomes significant. This can change the now refractive index. Okay? Now if refractive index change, a lot of things changes, right? Properties of fiber gets changed. So this is what we call as non-linearity. Non-linearity can be used for our for manufacturing the non-linear based sensors. These are very useful for intrusion sensors. There's intrusion. You can detect that thing, temperature, pressure, stresses. These are very popular sensors, non-linear based sensor. They have military application. So we'll see use case for that. We have developed non-linear based sensors for Indian Army. We'll discuss that case. Okay, so there is a very small quiz. I'm giving you 5 minutes, so it is not test. Just see these problems here and try to find out answers. They are very simple, no? And just note down with yourself if you have pen and paper. I will discuss the answers. So please take 5 minutes, not more than that. Yeah, you can write down answer with yourself, and you can then tally those answers.
Yes.
I know you are doctors, but treating students as students is the better thing. So it is, I think, 3 minutes. If you are ready.
Sir, 2 more minutes, sir, please.
Okay. The reason for giving this quiz is that once you know this thing, then it's very easy to understand sensors. Okay, then because we have to discuss sensors. So as you know, fundamental optic fiber, this is GO2 as we know, right? Network former, network modifiers. We have seen those things. So GO2 and PBO, all things. I hope. Please tally your answer with this one. GO2 is, as you know, it forms the glass, so it is a network former. SiO2 forms the glass, so it is a network former. PBO and all other things, GO, GeSi, boron, phosphorus. Other than that, other things are modifiers. So PBO, Al2, 3 are modifiers. Then coming to which wavelength has more energy? No, lower wavelength is better. So
1310.
Right. Naturally, then material has falling Ri. Higher Ri means lower speed. So which will support the highest speed. Highest speed means which would have lowest Ri. So 1.45 is the answer here. Lower the wavelength, lower the refractive index, we get higher the speed. Then as I discussed, coating material has Ri less than cladding. Is false because we always keep coating material Ri higher so that any stray power is absorbed or released. It should not stay there in the fiber because outside cladding material is not such a pure. It can induce a lot of losses. We just let it go. Then polarization is a random. It's very random there because it changes a lot in the fiber. And polarization is the orientation of electric field. Yes, it is going like this way or that way. That's the orientation. Then multimode fiber has thousands of modes. Right? That's true. I hope that you did well. If not, please correct the answers. Okay, now so we are now entering into optical fiber sensors, and there will be another quiz for this before we go into use cases. So please listen carefully. Okay, so we are going for now optical fiber sensors. We are going to use whatever bad property is there for communication. We are going to use it for our sensing. A very basic thing for advantage of optical fiber sensors. One thing is remotable. We can do it from long distance. Very lightweight, and very important thing is it has this immunity of electromagnetic interference. Electromagnetic interference immunity. This has generated a lot of interest from armed forces because now nobody can interfere there. So this type of sensors, optical fiber sensors, have generated a lot of interest in armed forces because of this reason: immunity, immune from RF and electromagnetic interference. So this is very important. Single one very most important advantage there. But other things are they are coming along with it. But when there is money, there is a research. Research needs money, and when there is an interest from army, then a lot of money is flowing through it. So research get a lot of boost there in optical fiber research. Another boost is from air industries, Boeing and all things, they are very actively using optical fiber sensors in airplanes. So there is a very good push from trust we're getting from armed forces and our air industry. Okay, there are just for simplification. We are various classifications are possible with optical fiber. We can have a point sensor, means we can sense at a point. For example, your thermometer, right? It's a point sensor. It senses that point. You take thermometer and put maybe water or body, and you sense the temperature. That is a point sensor, thermometer. Now if you take many thermometers and arrange them, that is called as quasi-distributed. That is a distributed one, but we are forcefully making it distributed. Another is distributed sensor. Distributed sensor means you take only single fiber, and along the length at up to kilometers and thousands of kilometers, we can sense what happens there. We don't need thousands of point sensors. That is a distributed sensors, and now market is here, distributed sensors. Okay, point sensors are there, but distributed sensors are getting huge boost. For distribution, we can use FPGs, scattering based phenomena, interferometry. So this scattering is getting more attention here, and in that we have Relay, Brilliant, and Raman. Everything is very good. So this is what we are going here. Relay, also Brilliant is used in civil structures. Raman are used for temperature, but they are not much popular. But Relay and Brilliant are getting a lot of boost. Also, we can classify in terms of chemical, physical, biomedical. We can also intensity, frequency, phase, polarization. We have seen the properties. So there are many ways are possible to have this. To have the optical fiber sensors. We'll discuss one by one. If you take point sensor, as I discussed earlier, if you take point sensor, you can sense only at one point. Okay, the sensing element at there is another quasi-distributed sensor. Means if you take combine these point sensors together, and we can get many points. Now we can sense at many points, n number of points, 1, 2, 3, 4, so 2 points, 10 points, 15 points. So we get what's called as quasi-distributed sensor. Then real actual distributed sensors, when you take only fiber, is the whole fiber itself is a sensor now. Okay. And they are very popular. We have distributed acoustic sensor, Brilliant OTDR, optical time domain reflectometry. We have a Raman OTDR. So these are the sensors which are actually distributed sensor. We'll see that all the sensors as we go along. I'm sorry if you get some noise there. Wife is cooking. Intensity based sensor. It's a very simple type of sensor we can make. Take the optical fiber, two optical fibers, put it together at some distance apart, send light from one end and receive at the other end. Okay. So if something happens in between this thing, so if something happens here, you change, you add the gas or you change the gas, you change the density, and then naturally the output will be changing here. Input is light is going through this way, output is coming through here, and as per changes here, the output will change. So that intensity will change. We can sense that, and we can calibrate it for different properties. So it is a very simple sensor we can make in laboratory. Generally, in student time, we used to make that type of sensors. So it is very easy to make it. Disadvantage is that if your input itself varies, then it becomes very difficult. And something fiber property varies. Something happens in fiber. Your optical, you can get the false sensing signal. But yeah, this is the very simplest form of sensor we can make. But it is very low cost, very simple to implement, and it's popular in laboratory type things where we have control environment. We can always use this type of sensors, intensity based sensors. Some example is we also call them evanescent field sensors. What generally we use that we take optical fiber with D shape. We call it D optical fiber. How we can draw that? We take the preform, cylindrical preform before draw, and cut it by using cutter. We used to do that during my postdoc time. Just take preform and cut it along the axis. We may not get exact shape, but we used to cut it. And then we used to put this on a drawing tower, this DIRA, and adjust the temperature so that you can get the D type of fiber, D-shaped fiber. So it is like this. Okay, so we can get very nice D-shaped fiber. Now this type of D fibers are the sensors talk, but just for your information, these are very popular for lasing application. For lasers, D-type fibers are very popular. We don't have any talk on lasers, but I would have explained that time. But when we made optical fiber laser, we extensively use D-type fiber, because if we are using full fiber, right, full circular fiber, the efficiency was very low. We're pumping it with very large power, but output was very low. The reason is that some power remains in cladding itself, and it should go into core to force it to go into core, pass to the core. We have to do such type of shapes. Some guys make power type also. So there are various shapes people have tried, but D has turned out to be very good for commercial production. Okay, so as we know, we have core here. Power goes through core. 80% power is in the core. 80% power is here. 20% power is outside the core. Suppose here, this area, okay, along the core. So now, as this fiber is cut here, you are getting this much portion here, some field, which we can use for sensing purpose. Just change something there outside. We put some liquid, gas, or whatever we think we want to put. So that will change the property of the output, and we can calibrate it for that property. That is Johannessen field sensor. There is another intensity modeling sensor. I mean, just take fiber, put it this way. You get the splicing type sensor. They are very basic sensors. You can splice this, change the splicing. That can be used. Output of that fiber can be used to sense any property. It is also very simple thing. We can have lateral or longitudinal variations there. We can pull fibers, we can pull the fiber, and we can sense. We can use it for sensing purpose. They are very basic sensors. Nobody uses this type of sensors nowadays, but you should know that they are existing. Another thing is you can just put input there, and if suppose this is a fiber here, this is a holy fiber, for example, and if there is some gas, it can be used. The output can be changed, and we can use it to sense that gas. So it looks very simple. It is generally holy fiber, means we have fiber with various holes there. Whole fiber, so gas can enter there. This was used to make NOx sensor, NOx. Because when you are driving car and vehicles, a lot of NOx comes out. It's very dangerous for our environment. So we generally go for pollution center, right, to do the pollution test. But we can, if we want to do it online, while driving the car, we can use this type of sensors, holy fiber sensors. So we developed that sensor there. Gas goes through it, and output changes, and we were able to tell how much is the contents of NOx there, NOx content, even carbon monoxide. So those two things were there. The drawback we found is that it was very difficult to once the gas goes there in holy fiber, it's deposited there, and then we have to replace it again, change it. So that is the drawback, and that's why it's not a much commercialized nowadays. The car industry is not using it. It was very promising, but we have to think how we can overcome that thing. But yeah, there are absorption-based sensors. They are very popular. For example, I have given one acetylene gas sensor. You have a chamber there with acetylene gas, optical fiber coming here. Other optical fiber is collecting that output, and we can see, for example, here, if there is no gas, no acetylene, just natural gas, we can obtain the output like this, optical spectrum through the optical spectrum analyzer. And if we put some acetylene gas there, we can get very different spectrum, and we can calibrate this for concentration of acetylene gas, C2H2. So this is one example. We can take NOx, we can put different gases, we can sense. And if you have a question why we have modes here in the output, they are very common here, right? Then you take lasers. if your not modes are not suppressed or filtered out, you can get such type of input there. Okay, so this is the example of gas sensor. So immunosenescent sensors are the type of sensors can be used there. Another one is now next is phase modulation sensor. Phase modulation. We change the phase. Very simple thing is what we do is that if suppose we have one light, one ray of light, another ray of light, we combine them together. When two lights are combined together, we know that what we get is called as interference pattern. That's a simple thing, right? So we get some interference pattern. But now if you change length of one beam, then the pattern will change. So you can calibrate that pattern for different properties. That's simple idea. For example, here, as you shown here in the second figure, you can have here. So coupler one, where light is going through it, there is a reference arm. Okay, this is optical fiber, and it is collected here. There is a coupler, so another part of light is going through this another arm, and it's collected here. Now both the lights are combined, so we get interference pattern. So in the optical spectrum, we in the picture like that way. So we get interference pattern like that in OSI. Now, if we change that, there are two arms, right? That's reference arm and sensing arm. You can change any arm. You just press. Don't do anything. Just press one of the arm. You will change that interference pattern. We can directly find out change in interference pattern, and then that can be used to sense your pressure, right? Just press the fiber. It's a very simple thing. You don't need to put any gas or anything. Just press it by hand. So that pattern will change. So that change in pattern can be now calibrated for different properties. Okay, that is a simple idea behind phase modulation sensors. Now we may not go into much details of that things, but this total phase is actually constant into length. How we can get? There is a refractive index. We can change the refractive index. We can change the length. Okay. So change the refractive index, change length of the arm. We can get different interference pattern. So if you are putting anything that changes this property, refractive index or length. So how can we change the length? But very simple. By there is tensile, right? Tensile. You pull it, you are going to change the length. Maybe very narrow micrometer. So if you change L, that will change the interference pattern. If you change refractive index, how can we change refractive index? Just change the temperature. Refractive index is temperature dependent. Change the temperature. So that interference pattern will change. So we can determine now what is the temperature, very exactly. Change the length, we can determine what is the strain or stress on the fiber or on the whatever we are using that equipment. So that is the case there. Very simple. So as explained here, refractive index can be changed with temperature. To change refractive index, we change the interference pattern, right? And strains and longitudinal strains and thermal expansion. I mean, if you change dimensions of fiber itself, then again we are changing the interference pattern. So use that interference pattern change and calibrate it for temperature, maybe pressure, whatever, or strain. So there is one very good gyroscope we tried to develop at in South Korea. They have missile system. So this is a very basic thing we do. It's not actual picture, but it gives you very good idea that how we can make gyroscope there. Very simple thing is that we have fiber, we have two arms there. When you rotate it, okay, you change the interference pattern. Okay, we rotate, we can change this. So there is a big theory behind it. We'll not go for that. We can always extract some papers. Gyroscopes are very useful for missile systems. Nowadays we use mechanical gyros, right? Suppose the missile is moving and it's changing direction, immediately it can show how much change is there. So mechanical there is always some lag in mechanical things, but if you use optical fiber sensor, it becomes very accurate. Will not go much in details of that thing. Another thing is photosensitive fibers and fiber bracketing. So what is photosensitive fiber? Means that fiber that is sensitive to your light, UV and things. We are giving optical, light inside the optical. It's propagating. The light is propagating inside the optical fiber core, and instead of coming it out, you are going to get different outputs or maybe at the input end or at the output end. That type of things can be there. Just what is it? Yes, I will show you here. Yeah. So if to make hyper photosensitive, we need to add, germanium. Germanium is photosensitive material. If there is no germanium, it is very difficult to get photosensitivity with that UV. We need some patterns, right? Such type of patterns can be generated. Refracted index patterns can be generated, as shown here. These patterns can be generated if the fiber is photosensitive. Okay? We can make fiber photosensitive by adding germanium. Very simple thing. Just add germanium. So what we do here is that we pass UV laser and it can generate different patterns. There is a phase mask, and we can generate fiber bracketings here. What is fiber bracketing? So there is a periodic change in the refracted index. High, low, high, low, high, low type of refracted pattern can be generated along the length of the optical fiber. Okay? And if you can make these things, it is very beautiful property for sensing. How I will show you here. So, here is the working principle. You send the light here to the fiber bracketing, and what we are getting is that reflected wave. So some part of the wave, that light is reflected back. We send the light, but part of it reflected back, and so output has the pattern which doesn't have that wavelength. Okay, so that is the basic principle. We can use this property now for sensing. Okay, how? For example, if you take how can we sense temperature using this thing? We have temperature here. Light is going through it, and then light is reflected back. So output pattern. So we can use actually output pattern or input pattern. So using the output pattern is very easier instead of collecting that input pattern, reflected one. So output, there is this wavelength was reflected back from the FBG fiber bracketing. It has reflected this wavelength. So output wavelength, output spectrum doesn't have this wavelength. Now, depending upon temperature, how much intensity is reflected back, how much is coming up, which wavelength is reflected, and which is passed. So that changes according to temperature. So we can calibrate these things. Okay, so if temperature is different, you may get different reflection here. It may not be blue, maybe suppose green light, something. So depending on temperature, the reflected light can be different. So we can use this phenomena. Now, if you take the output pattern and calibrate it with temperature, okay, this is the temperature, this is the temperature, this wavelength is absent. So from that calibration, we can actually make optical fiber sensor to sense the temperature. So FBG is very useful, very popular sensor type things. There is problem with FBG because there are patterns, right? Reflected in these patterns, high, low, high, low, high, low. For example, as shown here, this is the high index, then there is low index, high index, low index. This pattern is they vary with temperature. Suppose environmental temperature is changing, this patterns vary, and your calibration goes into waste. So that is the disadvantage of FBG. We need to have a very controlled environment for FBG sensing. Okay. Similar for strain sensing also. You send light and you applied strain. Some light is reflected back, and we say, okay, this is the strain. We can just suppose you press the fiber by a hand, by your fingers. Some light will be reflected back. Some light is passed. And from that we can calibrate it. Okay, this is how much is the strain. If his known strain is applied and which wavelength is absent, we can then predict from that one. Oh, this is the strain value. So FBG can sense strain, temperature very beautifully. Only thing is that we have to control the environmental temperature. Environmental temperature is very important. Then there is another method, that is sensing using scattering in optical fibers. What is the scattering? We'll see. Let's come one by one. First is a relay scattering. We always say, oh, the glass is a very beautiful amorphous rod. So fiber is a beautiful subject, beautiful thing where it has a large bandwidth. Okay, that's very good thing to tell. In reality, there are huge problems there. What is that? Problem itself is silica itself is the problem, SiO2. Because it's very difficult to get homogeneous things. We are making it practical, right? So in the furnace itself, temperature changes. We generally say, suppose we are keeping temperature at 1500 degrees Celsius. It may not be, it may vary. Along the furnace, length, it vary. So that gives rise to the density variations. We get glass, we get SiO2 glass, very nice glass, very beautiful, but density can change. For example, it's shown here, right? Density is very high here, density is lower here. Such type of thing occurs there. We can have such as particles forming there, very high density particles forming here. If something happens that like that, then the light which is coming here, it can be scattered everywhere. And scattering means you are losing that power. So we get attenuation. That's called that is a relay scattering. Okay, that phenomenon is relay scattering. So will not be, this is a glass basics. I will not discuss this process. I will just tell you that there is a one phenomenon which is called as TF, fictive temperature. By reducing the 50 temperature, we can reduce this phenomenon. Okay, but that is the last thing. Will not go for it. So I have seen that there are density fluctuation and it can scatter the light, and that will give rise to the losses. So it is very bad phenomena for communication, relay scattering loss. And this is what we generally you get that attenuation spectra of optical fiber. There is no water loss here. You generally suppress it out. So this is the water basic things we are getting attenuation dominated by relay scattering. So it is very bad for, if relay scattering is not there, we have got whole power there. Right? If there is no loss, we put the input power, we get the similar output power. That's a beautiful thing. But it's not there. Relay scattering causes the losses, and losses are not good for optical communication. So losses are not good for optical communication, this relay scattering phenomena. So it is good for our sensing. We know that thing. Okay, so we'll use this relay scattering for our sensing. This is what there are density, high density areas here, here. So your light can be scattered like that way, right? Another one here. So light goes there and is scattered. So your output light becomes very low. So input is very large, output is very low. So there is a loss there because of relay scattering. So this slide was made by my colleague, Dr. Anisha. She has beautifully made it. So relay scattering causes the loss. Okay. And as we saw, if there is scattering, we can use it for our communication purpose, our sensing purpose. Then another scattering is called as Brillouin scattering. Because material, this is a temporary phenomenon. There is vibration. You are putting light and vibrations chain because of input light. It can generate the density variation. That is a temporary phenomenon. And then now there are gratings, right? There are temporary gratings are formed. Okay. So when you put the light itself can generate this type of thing. So when we have this type of gratings, you take out the light, this gratings gone. So just for understanding, we're seeing that thing. We're not going into energy diagram of Brillouin or all things. So if you send the light here, then because of grating, some light will come out, right? Some is reflected back. So that is called as Brillouin scattering. So Brillouin scattering is very important phenomena, very beautiful phenomena for temperature as well as stresses. So this is extensively used to sense stresses in airplanes, your bridges, for civil constructions. Brillouin is beautiful. Okay? And relay is used for intrusion sensing. I will show that. Another phenomena is Raman scattering. In Raman, there is a vibration, right? We are giving the light and then the vibration, and there is a polarization variation. If we are getting grating like that way, so they are called as long period grating. We get some light is reflected back, some is passing through it. Both way. In Brillouin, what happens is reflected back. We understand as a FBG type things. In Raman, it is reflected back as well as it is some light passes remaining white. So that is a Raman type of thing. Raman scattering. Raman scattering also causes loss of power It is bad for communication. It's good for our sensing. So Raman is very, very useful for actually temperature sensing, but it is insensitive to what called stress, strain. We can do anything with that. There is the polarization. Polarization is insensitive to stresses. Then yeah, so relay scattering can be used for sensing the vibrations. Okay, Raman can be used for temperature, and Brilliant is temperature and strain dependent. So they are the main application areas for relay, Raman, and Brilliant type of scatterings. From going from distributed sensing, I'm just explaining you optical time domain reflectometer how it works. We send pulse of light. Okay, it goes inside the optical fiber. If there is something happening here, okay, some attenuation, some highest area or something that is reflecting the light, scattering light. So remaining, we sense that we take it back and detect it. So delay in, we have sent the pulse as time t1. We have received the pulse at time t2. Difference in t2 and t1 can be used to determine the length of that fiber from where this has occurred. So you go on collecting such instances from different lengths, and we can actually then determine what happens along the length of that fiber. Okay? So it is called as distributed type of thing because we are doing it along the length, and it's not at maybe along centimeter, maybe meters or 200 meters as per your need. We'll see that how that. There is another as a relay scattering. There is another phenomenon called as coherent OTDR. In coherent OTDR, we try to give coherent signal there. They are very expensive because we are doing monochromatic light, right? As monochromatic as possible. So in this case, advantage is that either we can get the high range there. Resolution can be very small, okay? 5 to 10 meters, even in centimeters. I will explain the use case. We have got resolution in centimeters. So this type of COTDR, coherent OTDRs are now used for sensing. You can use OTDR, but resolution is not that high. So you must use coherent length to get type of thing. And distributed acoustic sensors. This DS stands for distributed acoustic sensor. I will show you how it happens. Applications of distributed fiber sensors are in oil and gas. There is oil, right? This is a pipeline, oil pipeline. We need to know what are the stresses there, how temperature there. So along the length, we need to know. We cannot put, suppose it's going for 1,000 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers. We cannot put 1,000 sensors. That will be billions of dollars. We cannot put that many sensors at every meter. But if you use optical fiber, it can sense along the length for every meter or for every centimeter or 50 kilometers. So that is the advantage of optical fiber sensors. So it also distributed sensors are used for bridges, then border security monitoring, in aeroplanes, then rail tracks, road tunnels. There are a lot of applications of distributed fiber sensing. We'll see it one by one. We have to just understand that Raman is the lower one, lowest cost. Brilliant has the very high cost, and relay type things have very high cost. Brilliant and highest is the Brilliant things. That comes around 80 lakhs rupees to 1 crore for an instrument. Brilliant OTDR is very expensive. Raman can come about 40 to 50 lakhs. Relay, yeah, in between them. That is not cheaper. Goes up to 70 lakhs, 80 lakhs. Now Raman can be used for temperature sensing, as we are seeing. Brilliant can be used for temperature as well as strain sensing. And a relay, generally it is can be used for strain as well as temperature. But resolution is lower. Brilliant is the expensive, but it can have very high. It can go to 100 kilometers. Relay scattering can be used for 100 kilometers. Raman generally it's because it is reflecting and passing light, right? So generally you don't get more than 10 kilometers. Maybe you can go to 15 kilometers, 15, 20, but generally you don't use it more than more than 10 kilometers. We don't get any signal after, in case of Raman. That's why the cost is very low there. There's if you are going for making optical fiber sensor, there are a lot of opportunities for us in Indian Navy. The guys need security systems. Somebody's coming inside. Intrusion is there. Indian Navy, Indian Air Force, Army. We can go for these distributed sensors. Not for temperature, but strain. You will wonder why how this is useful for strain. How is useful for army? Strain means you are getting some space pressure there. You are walking on the ground. You are creating some pressure there, right? So we can sense that pressure by optical fiber, by distributed optical fiber. So that is that much capability is there for this type of distributed sensor, optical fiber distributed sensor. Very powerful. In oil and gas pipelines, then airports. Bangalore airport is actually deploying optical fiber sensors now. There are some deployments in BARC, security forces, BSF. BSF actually is trying to have optical fiber sensors at the India-Pakistan border. Because if somebody is intruding, even making tunnel, coming through tunnel, right? There at the Kashmir area, there are a lot of intrusions occur. But we can detect them directly by using distributed optical fiber sensors. Even small walk, even bird, even the shaking of leaves on the if in the vicinity of your sensors, that can be sensed. It's very powerful sensor, dust sensor, distributed acoustic sensor. They're very powerful, and powerful also have a problem, right? If monkey is coming, then it's very difficult. That also can make pattern like human being. Now in India for dust sensors. There is one I'm going to give an example what we did. This typical picture is about BOTDR that we use in actual field along the 50 kilometers. Aurangabad to some region was there. Yeah, Maktapur, Aurangabad to Maktapur region. We also use same measurements, and I remember in Konkan area nearby Bombay, there were hilly area and there were Vodafone's deployment was there. So we were checking that if there is any problem in that deployment. So we use BOTDR, Boolean OTDR for that one, and you can see that there is a strain here. So it can show the strain along the length up to 50 kilometer at each meter. We can see. Suppose there is some strain, some big rock is fallen down on your cable. We cannot see, right? We are sitting in Mumbai, and that happens in somewhere hilly area in Konkan. But we can determine that. For example, it looks like here there is high strain. Something has happened, and we can go there and check what happened. What is the problem there? So strain sensing. This is distributed strain sensing in the field. We have done such thing in Konkan area, Vodafone. And interestingly, is related to this, but I would like to share the finding there. We found that there were many instances of high strain, changing from strain. The baseline was changing. And then we inquired there, what's happening there? We went there at the spots, and then we found that very same thing. We are single mode fibers, right? Along the single mode fibers, other fiber was splice, and that was not single mode. That was a dispersion shifted fiber was. So people use such funny things there, and that can cause a lot of power loss. So we give that feedback to Vodafone, and then they change that fiber, that cable. Okay, so BOTDR has a lot of use. This is the actual measurement shown there. I hope that you understood the things. Just a small quiz time. Just take your 2-3 minutes here. Please try to solve. Take 2 minutes and please solve this quiz. Okay, I think we can now discuss the answers. So, if you understood this thing, that will be very good. If you take for Raman scattering, generally it is used for temperature. Like Raman is for temperature. It cannot determine vibration or strain because polarization doesn't respond to it. Then best spatial resolution in centimeters. Brilliant OTDR is best for centimeter type of sensing. Then third one is intensity based sensors are easy to install. Yeah, true, right? Very easy. FPG sensors are not affected by temperature variation. That is a false thing because FPG is most affected by temperature, environmental temperature. If changing thing, everything changes. So that is a drawback of FPG actually. Coming to missiles, missile use gyroscopic sensors. Yes, true. I discussed that. Gyroscope sensors are used missiles. That is one of the reasons that I have to return from South Korea. Then we have intrusion can be detected using DAS sensor. Yes, distributed acoustic sensors, the relay sensors, they are used to actually determine the intrusion. I'm going to show you actually one use case. We have made this DAS sensor for Army. And the demo is in our Starlight's Aurangabad factory. Okay, then we move ahead. Now we'll go for sensors use cases. I'll quickly finish it. Don't worry. You must be hungry. Quickly coming to phenomena of which is called as surface plasmon resonance. These are very popular phenomena, right? Used for sensing. Gupta sir from IIT Delhi has done extensive work on that. What is the surface plasmon? Is that we have electrons, right? They are vibrating. Okay. So when electrons are vibrating, it has some resonant frequency. That's what we call as plasmon, right? So collective oscillations of electrons is plasmon. And if there is collectively oscillating because of some phenomena, whatever may be, okay, there is some collective oscillation, that the plasmons, and if now there is some frequency is F. Now, if your input frequency is F, so the F matches with F, and it can resonance frequency, right? It can use huge loss. That's called as surface plasmon resonance phenomena. We can use this phenomena for sensing purpose, and generally we use visible wavelength. It should be visible, right, to eyes. So very popular material for surface plasma resonance are gold and silver. Gold generally gives in red region, 650 or 800 or around that thing. That is the wavelength or gold. So gold is very popular material for surface plasma resonance. It can be used for chemical sensing and all things. This is the actually sensor that we made at South Korea. Optical fiber was okay. We pulled it. There is a 1000 micrometer fiber. It's not general fiber. We made 1000 micrometer fiber, pull it out to 60 micron. So 1000 to 1000 to you get to 60 micron. And what we did next is that we deposited gold layer along this. This is this small region, right? So along over this region, we deposited the gold thin film. It's a very difficult to actually coat gold on glass. So that was why this titanium was used. So titanium, very narrow layer, then followed by gold. That was the successful thing. Okay, so 2 nanometer titanium layer, 50 nanometer gold layer. With this ion implantation, I think. So as shown in this figure, right, this very narrow layer was deposited on this narrow portion. Okay, very thin layer was deposited on narrow portion, and it looks like this way. This is the actual picture of that sensor. So what we observed here now, okay, this is our optical fiber. This is the region where gold was deposited, gold layer. That's 50 nanometer thickness. Gold layer was deposited. Output was collected here. So what we observed, actually, basically, this was made for sensing proteins. This was the basic original reason. But yeah, interesting to share this experience. It is always, I mean, we are human being, right? So there was conflict between our professor and professor of biotechnology, that guys who are supposed to work with us on proteins. So and because of the conflict between two labs, we didn't get that help of using proteins. So I don't know how proteins are used. I missed that experience. But then we decided, okay, there is no protein, no worry. We can use index matching oil. We had different index matching oils with different index, because protein actually we have different index there. That was our concept. So instead of using protein, we use refractory index matching oil with different indices. And what we say, if refractory index is very high, this pink one, this resonant frequency is here, while when refractory index is very low, 1.404, all right, there is a shift of this peak wavelength. So there is shift. So using that shift, actually now we can determine what is the refractory index of that index matching oil. Similarly, if you put now proteins, and if you can determine refractory index, we can determine the concentration of that protein. That was the concept. So this is the use case that we develop for determining the protein sensor. I hope that it's clear to you. Then another case, if you go, we also use this phenomena. We develop current sensor. I will skip these things. What we are going to is that, yeah, there is one phenomenon is called as Faraday effect. Faraday effect. What Faraday effect tells is that when you pass the light to any media, optical media, right? So it has some polarization. For example, this is the polarization here, this way. When it passes, if to magnetic field, because of magnetic field, its polarization rotates. And if we can sense the rotation of polarization, we can make the sensor, magnetic field sensor. That is called as Faraday effect, Faraday rotation. It has very simple formula. Faraday rotation is V into L into B. V is Faraday constant. It is constant. L is the length of our fiber. B is the magnetic field in Tesla. So if we can now determine the rotation of that polarization, we can determine the strength of magnetic field. Now you will wonder why we are talking about current and we are measuring magnetic field, because when current is flowing through the wire, right, it also generates magnetic field. So if you can sense that magnetic field, we can determine the current. So now we don't need to touch anything. It is touchless sensor. So this very beautiful sensor was made there using the Faraday rotation. It's based on if you have magnetic field, in the magnetic field, the polarization rotates. So if you can determine that rotation, we can tell this is the magnetic field strength. And it can go back to current. How much is the current amplitude? Ampere there. Why it is so useful? You have seen, right, these current transformers that we use are very big size, towers, big towers are there for transformers. They can, there is oil there, it can explode, the oil leakage, a lot of problems are there. But these things can go into past. We can make very tiny transformers by using your current transformers, by using optical fiber sensors. Okay? That is the advantage that is going on that project. So we want to replace these big towers of currents transformers into a tiny fiber optic transformers, current transformers. So what we do there? I will show one example here. Yeah, what was done instead of going into current transformer, how we sense the magnetic field, that I'm going to tell you. We take laser diode, and this is optical fiber here, and we have to take care that linear polarization should go there, because as you know there is very random polarization. So we make linear polarized light is passed through this optical fiber. We created magnetic field using solenoid, and there is a polarimeter which tells how much is the rotation of your polarization, how much is the rotation, that can be determined automatically by using computer software. So we pass that light, and when the magnetic field is generated, actually there is a change of rotation. How it is determined, I will tell you here. Okay. So this is what we get. This is the polarimeter output on the computer. if there is a no current, no magnetic field, this is what we get. And if we now do the pass the current, there is change of rotation, right? You can see this is now change. It's coming here. So this stuff is now here. So earlier it was here without current. Now with current, that rotation is there. Similarly, without current, it is here. After changing the current, they generate magnetic field, and there is change of polarization. Now, based on polarity, it is in direction. So if you can now just calibrate, you just know what was the current there. You change the current and you measure this rotation angle. We can calibrate it for current sensor. Very simple. We have in the laboratory we made this current sensor. Now it is going to be used for transformer. So that type of Faraday current sensor was made. You can refer my paper in Optics Express there. I refer Optics Express. OSS Optical Express. Coming finally to DAS solution architecture in Starlight, the third use case, third sensor that is commercially made. So we have, so one fiber is buried here underground. One fiber is kept on the fence, and we use distributed acoustic sensing, relay scattering. Okay. We call it as a distributed acoustic sensing to sense the any vibrations there. Okay. You walk it, you run, do anything, we can sense it. Just for your information, as I will tell you, if you talk today, if you are talking there in the room, if fiber is going there nearby, the room, it can actually modulate the light, and we can sense it. It's so powerful. This does. Your life is very dangerous in next decade. People can spy on you what you are talking, because fiber is going to enter your premises, even with your homes, and whatever you are talking can be sensed there. You don't need microphones. So this distributed acoustic sensing is very dangerous phenomenon. Okay, so as I shown here, this is our border. This is fence. So black color are our cables, optical fiber cables. We don't use direct optical fiber. So there are small cables, so that nothing happens there. And the other picture shows how we buried there. We buried the same cables in the earth, in the ground. That was our football ground. There are a lot of complaints we received because we destroyed the football ground. So like that, we deployed our fiber, and right. So when something happens, we touch it. We touch the fence here, okay, by stick, we're checking it. So this is type of pattern obtained. Okay. So it tells how much is the location in meters. So exact location is known here. At this location, at this meter, okay, 30,000 something. We obtain this it is ticking, tack. So you can see there are many vibrations are there with time. So that way we were able to sense the vibration in that fence. Even as there are leaves here, right? So these guys also show a lot of variations. You can see there nearby, a lot of variations are there. These are because of vibrations of leaves. That also sense. We also did on the found we were using vehicles. We walk on that one, and we found up to 10 meters of area where we buried the optical fiber. Up to 10 meters of area, we were able to sense the walking. Okay, depth was sorry. So we used 60 meter depth, and I remember depth was around half meter or something. Okay, so that was use cases. Actually, fiber sensor, they are not just just stories. They are actually made. We made it. We are using it. People are using it. I have shown some few use cases in magnetic field sensor, distributed acoustic sensor for sensing intrusion. Somebody is walking, and we also shown what's called as a surface plasma resonance sensor. So they are actually in use. People are using it. Industry are making it. When before closing is done, we lost actually quotation. There was a fight between Russian and Starlight for this type of sensor. Army, they historically believes in Russia, right? Because a lot of hardware is from Russia. So in that sense, we lost it. But now we are getting interest from Navy. Navy is pursuing this type of for their campuses, this type of sensors, intelligent sensors. So we have another demo arranged for the Navy in Delhi. We have Delhi office. So if you somebody go, you can visit there, or you can come to Sterlite. We'll show how this sensor works actually in practice. Okay, so I thought I think I have given you good preview what are sensors and what are different type of sensors can made, what sensors I made, and all those things. I hope you enjoyed my talk. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, if you have any questions to ask Pramod sir, you can raise your hands or unmute yourself and ask the question.
Right. Hope that they are not hungry, right? It's time to.
Yes, sir. One more thing, Dr. Ajit Kumar from Delhi Technological University.
Right.
He was also attending the session.
Oh, really? Hi, Ajit Kumar. We are working together. Fine. Long time no see.
Yes.
Actually, we used to work in Korea, right? You're living nearby my quarter, my house there.
Yes.
Right. He
was
in
Korea for some time.
Right. Professor Ajit Kumar was person who used to work only in the night time. And then consuming very hot black coffee. Still going on or not?
Yeah, more or less is like that only, but since now we have 2 kids, so now we know that lifestyle is changed now a little bit.
Oh, really? Okay. Very nice. बड़ा मजा आता था उस वक्त, है ना? So old memories came back.
Yes. Tomorrow we have session from Dr. Ajit Kumar, sir.
Oh, right. Okay. We can also attend, right?
Sure.
Same link, or we have to use another link?
I will share link with you, sir.
All right. I would like to attend his camp.
Yes. Dr. Bharti Patel, ma'am, please ask your question.
Sir, I wish to ask you one question. That is, if there is problem in the fiber, then we have to replace only the defected part or the whole line. And also there is one more question. Do you have any idea about photoelasticity?
All right. So coming to the first question, what happens is that we generally keep lots of fiber. We don't give one fiber, right? In cables, we keep generally 144 fibers. It's common. Okay.
Yes.
So if there is problem in one fiber, we use another fiber because we cannot replace cable, right? It's cable and then duct. We cannot use those damaged fibers. So we have to use only a spare fiber. So we always keep a lot of.
Okay.
Right. Because and nowadays people are using thousands of spares, right? For example, Airtel, sorry, Jio. Jio is asking for 1,000 fiber cable because they have future plans and expansion as well as for spare things. So a lot of things can be used. Regarding photosensitivity, generally we do
photoelasticity, sir. Photoelasticity.
Photoelasticity. Why want to do that? That's generally used in case of bending things. We use that type of things. Any specific reason for that one?
Okay, thank you, sir.
No, sorry. Any specific reason why you are actually interested in that?
No, sir. Sir, there was a topic related to polarization, and in that there was a bit related to photoelasticity.
Right.
In general, glass is not working as a means polarizing material, but when we applied load on it, then it will change the plane of polarization. So I wish to learn something related to it.
Right. So I will refer you to the papers on bend insensitive fibers. Okay. While finding the bending loss, actual accurate bending loss, because theoretical thing is very different and practical things never match with that. So why that difference is there? So this is the phenomena. So
yes, sir.
It has been discussed in detail.
I'm also only reading and delivering it to my students. So I should understand something.
Right. So because it's a big topic, I think we can discuss, right? So I will refer you to some papers on this bend insensitive fibers.
Okay,
so
sir. Okay.
They're all formulas and everything has been explained. This is why we use this because we develop bend insensitive fibers, and our theoretical results were never matching with the experimental things. So we're in fix. What happened? How even we took help of IIT Delhi. They did simulation for us. They were not matching. So then we find out. Yeah, there is a we have to take these things
Okay,
into
sir.
consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request one of our participants, Dr. Shehzad, to propose vote of thanks for this session.
Good afternoon, all of you. On behalf of Rajashri Sahu Mahavidyalaya, Latur, I, Dr. Shehzad, would like to thank Dr. Pramod Watekar from Sterlite Technology Limited for such a wonderful and informative session on advancement in optical fiber sensors. We have enjoyed and learned a lot from your session, sir, such as basics of glass, refractive index, microbending, macrobending, polarization, nonlinearity in optical fiber, intensity-based sensors, phase modulation sensors, relay scattering, Boolean scattering, Raman scattering, and applications and use of sensors and optical fibers. So thank you, sir, for your sharing a knowledge on optical fiber. Also, I'd like to
thank you very much.
Also, I'd like to thank the principal of Rajashri Sahu Mahavidyalaya Latur for their constant support. I also would like to thank 1 week online faculty development program coordinator, Dr. Abhijit Yadav, and all the organizers of the FDP. Finally, I would like to thank all the participants for attending the session. Once again, I thank one and all who are present here. Have a nice and great day ahead. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Abhijit.
Thank you, Shehzad sir, thank you, Pramod sir, and thank you, Ajit sir. Ajit Kumar sir, see you tomorrow in the afternoon session. And thank you, participants.
Yeah, thank you very much, participants, because you patiently listening to me when you are hungry. And Dr. Ajit Kumar is one of the brilliant scientists from this generation.
Yes.
So I think we'll try. That session will be very interesting. Because I have seen him working very hard, and he's a very brilliant guy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir, for the comments.